Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. America's redistricting battles just became a full-fledged war. Democrats are vowing to go all in tonight after a consequential setback in Virginia. The state Supreme Court striking down the new congressional map that favors Democrats, ruling that the party began the process of putting the measure on the ballot too late. The new map would have created 4 new majority blue districts, and it was created in response to President Trump's call for red states to redraw maps to favor Republicans. Now, last month, voters narrowly passed that referendum, and Democrats are vowing to appeal. The House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, says that the fight is just getting started, and it all comes after the Supreme Court issued a historic ruling that severely weakened the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and it opened the door to new redistricting battles all across the South. Like, for example, in Alabama, where Republicans are now asking the Supreme Court to allow the state to revert back to an old map that it had struck down. The court in 2023 ultimately ordered the officials to redraw its map after it tried to pack black voters into one district. So we are, to be frank, in the depths of hell now when it comes to redistricting. I don't think there's a better way to put it. Like, there's no bottom. Officially here. I think between the Supreme Court ruling and Virginia, we have a situation where pretty much every state is going to be looking at their maps and seeing whether they can box out the other political party. And the result is going to be, I think, just terrible, chaos. Probably. Yeah, chaos, terrible for our democracy. But for black voters in particular in the South, they're looking to lose pretty much most, if not all, of their representation in southern states.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, I think a lot of people have tried to couch these events in terms of the last few years, but I think we have to look at it in terms of the historical context of the entire country. This is part of an ongoing political project that began after the Civil War and was designed to disenfranchise black voters. And then when disenfranchisement required a more sophisticated solution, it was poll taxes and literacy taxes and the grandfather rule. And then when we couldn't actually prevent people from voting, we decided to dilute their collective political force and see if there wasn't a way that you could prevent the entire community from coalescing enough political power to have influence. And the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court, they were bulwarks against that kind of behavior. But now what we're seeing is a rollback on all of that with Trump's supermajority on the court. And it's not a coincidence that after Alexander, or because of Alexander in South Carolina, you saw 30,000 black voters moved into a new district to target a 17% black voting age population in another district. It's not a coincidence that Tennessee has already carved up the largest, or the only majority black district into 3 separate districts. And when you're going back to the Alabama map, where they explicitly said, we're packing all the black folks into one district. Look, my father used to tell me this thing when I was a kid, and it used to drive me crazy. Like, don't tell me your priorities, show me your budget. And the Supreme Court has basically given people license to say, no, it's about partisanship, but we all know what it is.
Horace?
Okay, so I disagree, I think, with almost everything that was said. One of the biggest challenges is 75 years ago, it was fair to say that if you looked like me, your voting record would be useful and constructive in supporting other people who look like me.
That's
what has happened now is that a far radical left group of people who happen to look like me are holding these spots, and even black Americans aren't agreeing with them. We've seen black Americans say, we want more law enforcement in our communities, not less. But their Washington representatives, we want less law enforcement. We've seen more black Americans challenge what is clearly a radical left progressive orthodoxy. And the Supreme Court said today that it will not enshrine into the Constitution that radical left orthodoxy is always going to get a seat.
That's nonsense. Directly, the court basically said, you can enshrine gerrymandering if you can reasonably claim that it is partisan. if you say that it's partisan and it has a racial effect, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. And you want to talk about extreme possible.
I don't know what racial effect means, though. I don't. Yeah. And that's my point.
Great. Let me give a couple
the
of.
The court has established what racial effect has meant on many occasions.
Let me give a couple of other examples of what we're about to see. So, for example, in South Carolina, the reporting is, as of right now, that the Trump administration is pressuring very heavily South Carolina Republicans to redistrict to get rid of Jim Clyburn's seat. He's the only Democrat representing that state. That state is 25% black, so it would eliminate all districts in the state that could potentially elect a representative of those voters' choice. And I want you to hear Lindsey Graham talk about this and why it's kind of a risky gamble in a state like South Carolina and maybe in other places in the country.
I would recommend that everybody look at the map and see if it's a net positive. It's up to the state legislature to do this, but in trying to pick up a seat, you don't want to jeopardize other seats. You know, make sure the map accomplishes the goal. If at the end of the day we create a map that gives Democrats more competitive opportunity, what have you gained?
So, I mean, two things to me are striking about what he just said. I think he's acknowledging that if you push black voters out of a Clyburn district and into Nancy Mace's district and Joe Wilson's district, you could create more competitive seats. But he's also seemingly just refuting what you just said, which is this idea that if Republicans thought that black voters were so competitive, they wouldn't have to move them. They would just compete, right?
It's a data thing.
Okay.
It's red
Let
map.
me let Denver's have a
Yeah, it's a
word
data
anyway.
thing. So when you talk about Tennessee specifically, it actually takes apart your argument, because if you're talking about splitting that district up into 3 districts, that means that actually the voting totals do not favor Republicans in that specific district. It's that simple. That's what gerrymandering is all about.
Except for the fact that that particular seat is occupied by a white person.
It's not a reflection of what they need.
The whole argument has been that we are diminishing the number of blacks in Congress.
That's not my argument.
No, that's not the argument I'm making.
That's not the
either.
argument.
I think
Okay,
can I
hold
just
on.
say,
Let me just let Denver was in the middle of finishing his point. Let me just let him finish, and then I'll let you guys on this.
It's fun. You got a lawyer next to a counterterrorism analyst. This will be fun. So anyway, here's the issue that as I see it. Direct action predicates exactly what the people are thinking. I'm not going to try to put words in people's mouth or anything like that, but when you see an immediate reaction to the VRA from Tennessee or other states and dismembering these districts and actually fragmenting them, that means that those districts are not in favor of the specific ruling party. It's that simple. That's what gerrymandering is.
So the whole thing is such a disgrace, and it's a disgrace. Both parties are doing it. It's outrageous what's happening, and it's such a simple problem. Why do we allow the politicians to draw the lines? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So there's such a simple solution to this, which is just have computers just draw lines that are contiguous and compact so that you don't have snake-like districts. Take politics out of it. Look, I hate racial gerrymandering. I hate gerrymandering. And what you've got right now is an escalation in this war. So the Democrats are saying, well, we're going to make all our blue states completely blue. And the Republicans say, we're going to make our states completely red. This is an affront to democracy. We hear all this talk about, threats to democracy. This gerrymandering, and both parties are doing it. I'm not blaming one party or another.
I think that feels like a fairly common sense view. And there have been, computer generated mock-ups of districts that, by the way, might produce a state with very few, if not no, seats allocated to another party. But that's because you're trying to keep communities together, which is part of the role of district.
Well, why not?
I think we agree that this is a disaster, but I think where we disagree is that these sort of both sides of it. I think we have to be honest about the fact where this moment started. Prior to Trump's attempt to mid-decade redistrict in Texas, there was a pretty commonly accepted decision that we would do this on a every decade basis that was enshrined in the Constitution, and we would figure it out at the state level, right? That's where this started to break down. Yes. It is a reasonable response from Democrats once that happened to race to the bottom. So I think it sounds like we agree.
I agree with you.
Okay. So let me ask you, Lee. Graham Plattner says I'm old enough to remember when Republicans in Ohio just ignored court rulings repeatedly and did it anyway. He's sort of suggesting that maybe Virginia should do the same.
Look,
wow.
I'm a big believer in following the law. And if the law says you can't do it, then you can't do it. What I am also a big believer in is fighting fire with fire. So I don't think Virginia even wanted to do what they did. I think they were very clearly they were pushed to it because they were like, well, what do we do? If one side is cheating and we're not cheating, I often use the analogy of cage match fighting. So if I am a boxer and I get into the ring and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do to get my points, to get my jab, to get my thing, and the other person starts kicking me in the head over and over again, and the ref doesn't call it, then I either learn to kick back or I get beat. And I think the Democrats are sick of getting beaten. So they did this, and they've done it through the voters, which the Republican side never did. I think at the end of the day, what we have to say is, look at Alabama. 34% of Alabama voted for Kamala Harris, which you could then extrapolate from that 30% at least of that state is Democrat. Then 30-odd% voted for Harris in Tennessee. So you could extrapolate that 30-odd% of Tennessee is for Democrats. But now they're going to have zero representation in Congress. That is a travesty to democracy, to the people's voice. And this is all about disenfranchising voters. And we are all voters. We are all voters.
Not
and if you start
unlike
Democrats,
Massachusetts.
Well,
that's not the point.
Well, yes, they disenfranchised.
No.
No, people vote in
No,
Massachusetts
that's actually
because they
not what
actually
happened.
like what they're getting
that's-
from their Democrats.
It's actually not neither of those things.
all right,
That is not what happened in
let's
Massachusetts.
talk about
I just
But
think people
let me
shouldn't
ask
think
you
that they are
this,
safe
Horace.
if they are not in the original group that's being
Down in
disenfranchised.
Florida, Lee said she believes in following the law. Down in Florida, Ron DeSantis is pushing through a gerrymandered voting map that directly defies the state's constitution that was passed by 60+% of the population. How is that allowed?
Okay, on this very program, I said the Constitution allows states to gerrymander. Gerrymander comes from Eldridge Gerry from New Jersey at the very early stages of America's history. We have had this phenomenon. What I said was, what you can't do.
State constitution,
I'm answering your
which
question.
explicitly
I'm answering your
prohibits
question.
partisan
What I said
gerrymandering.
is you can't cheat. Virginia was lazy and didn't do it properly, and it got struck down. If it turns out that Florida didn't do it properly, it too will be struck
Well,
down.
I'm telling you, I mean,
have the right
even
to
Ron
do it.
DeSantis is acknowledging that he is defying the state's constitution because he just doesn't think it applies. And that may get through because the Republicans have pretty much unilateral control down there, but that is also a defiance of the law. And Republicans seem to be totally fine with
There is
that.
a due process argument that could be made to go into a federal court. You get to pick it, by the way, and you could pick a Democrat appointee to raise these particular points. But the issue is
what you have now is look at the big states. Look at Florida, Texas, New York, the biggest states in the country, Illinois, where I'm from. They're all being divided up by the party in power, so that it's like 9-1 in one state and 12-1 in another state. And
Illinois could go even further.
I know.
There's room there,
These districts are supposed to represent the voters, and they don't do that.
the issue isn't whether that's a good policy or not. The issue is whether or not the Constitution bars it. And all that I've been saying
a
is
constitutional amendment to change
okay,
it. You know?
do that.
The Constitution also allows.
But you know what?
the
I
Constitution-
actually think we're in a place now where people are asking, is this right for our democracy? It's not just on a technicality, does the law allow it, but do we actually want to live in a
Then
society?
amend
in
it
which-
if it's so
No,
overwhelmingly
I get it,
obvious.
but we're having a discussion at this table about where the country ought to be, right? And I think that's what, if you're really talking to Americans about this at home, that's probably what they're talking about too.
Yes.
Do we want the country to look like this?
I
Here's
want
my
the
word.
country to adhere to the existing contract called the Constitution.
Oh, we would all love that, but maybe you
Hold
don't
on,
want to talk to
hold
the
on.
president.
Let's
about that.
please let Denver have a
My worry is about the change in the infrastructure of fairness. You know, when you look at 2019, you took away courts' ability to actually stop partisan gerrymandering. You go to 2026, you're looking at racial gerrymandering. And my issue is when you're looking at 6 states that you talked about that did mid-decade redistricting at the command of the president, that's what started this. The other thing, back to Stephen, The fairness thing, and Stephen, actually you were compelling, because my biggest worry is that people are going to feel disenfranchised at every portion of this. And just like when I was looking at the January 6th wave of violence, or people who started to think they're disenfranchised, what this is going to start is a race to the bottom. As Stephen's talking about, everybody's talking about here, but that race to the bottom, for me, my worry is the 2026 and 2028 midterms, and when people feel disenfranchised and they feel like the courts aren't talking with them, they feel like their votes are being taken away. That's my biggest fear, because that was the same radical message that was pushed before January 6th, that the election was stolen, and now you have this same divide happening in the country based on this race to the bottom on gerrymandering. I think it's the most dangerous thing we've seen in a long time, what's happening today, especially even the phone calls I got today. Democrats, Republicans, there is madness and anger and rage. And that is my fear, is that same type of sort of this stochastic awfulness, right, that's starting to come out of people based on all of these decisions, I think is going to rear its head.
All right. Next for us, the jobs report that surprised everyone. So, is there reason for optimism now, despite 80% of Americans saying that they feel economic pain? Plus, Barack Obama has some blunt advice for his fellow Democrats. Stop with the, quote, gobbledygook. We'll discuss.